Hello, everyone. This is Michelle Bauer, and today I'll be presenting my program evaluation on Early Start Denver Model, or ESDM, which is an early intervention program designed for young children with autism spectrum disorder. The Early Start Denver Model is an evidence-based early intervention designed for children between about 12 months to 48-month old who have been diagnosed with autism. A little bit of a background, this model was developed by Dr. Sally Rogers and Dr. Dawson, and it actually built on earlier behavioral models, but adapts them to be more developmentally appropriate for very, very young children. As autism began to be diagnosed at earlier ages, there was a growing need for interventions that worked specifically for toddlers, not just school-age children. ESDM was developed in response to that gap, focusing on early brain development and the idea that intervention is most effective when it happens early in life. What makes this program different is that it combines applied behavior analysis with developmental and relation-based approaches. So instead of relying on structured teaching, it emphasizes learning through play and everyday interactions. Another important part of the program is that the caregivers are actively involved, which allows the strategies to carry over daily routines, making this intervention more natural and consistent. The main goals of Early Start Denver model are to improve communication, social interaction, cognitive development, and adaptive functioning. But beyond those core areas, the program also focused on reducing the severity of autism-related symptoms and improving emotional regulation. So another important goal, which I think is sometimes super overlooked, is strengthening the relationship between the child and their caregiver. By teaching caregivers how to interact in more supportive and responsive ways, the program helps create a more consistent and I would say meaningful learning environment for the child. To support these goals, the program used several key strategies. One of the most important is play-based intervention, where learning happens through activities that are engaging and meaningful to the child. So the program also includes parent coaching, which helps caregivers learn how to use intervention strategies during everyday interactions. This increases the intensity of the intervention without requiring more formal therapy time. In addition to that, ESDM incorporates ABA-based techniques like prompting, modeling, and reinforcement, but these are used in a more flexible and natural way. The program is also delivered at a high level of intensity, often more than 20 hours a week, and includes ongoing progress monitoring so that interventions can be adjusted based on the child's need. The logic model shows how these strategies connect to outcomes over time. In short term, we expect to see increased child engagement and improved caregiver use of strategies. These early changes are important because they create more opportunities for learning. As these changes continue, they lead to intermediate outcomes like improved communication skills, better social interactions, and stronger parent-child relationships. Over time, these improvements contribute to long-term outcomes such as improved adaptive functioning or reduced autism symptom severity, overall developmental progress. So the logic model really shows how small early changes build into a more meaningful long-term outcomes. So the program theory behind ESDM is based on the idea that early, intensive, and relationship-based intervention leads to stronger developmental outcomes. So instead of assuming that change happens automatically, the theory explains how each step builds on the next. For example, if children are more engaged during play-based interactions, they are more likely to develop communication and social skills. As those skills improve, children are better able to interact with others and participate in learning experiences. Over time, this leads to a broader developmental improvements. This step-by-step process is really important because it shows how and why the program is expected to work, not just what it does. For the evaluation, I use mixed methods approach, which combines both quantitative and qualitative data. Quantitative data includes standardized assessments and behavior observations, which allow us to measure changes in communication, social interactions, and adaptive functioning. Qualitative data includes caregivers interviews and the program feedback, which provide insight into participants' experiences and how the program is implemented in real-life settings. So this evaluation uses the pre- and post-assessment design to measure change over time, specifically from program entry to about 3 months of participation. In addition, both formative and summative evaluation approaches are used. Formative evaluation focuses on how well the program has been implemented, including whether caregivers are using strategies correctly. Summative evaluation focus on overall effectiveness of the program and whether it is achieving its intended outcomes, I would say. The evaluation includes approximately 30 to 50 participants, like children and caregivers, with an emphasis on including participants from diverse cultural, linguistic, and social economic backgrounds. So the evaluation metrics outlines exactly how each part of the program will be measured. It includes evaluation questions, indicators, targets, data sources, and analysis methods for each component of the program. This helps ensure that both implementation and outcomes are being evaluated in a structured and organized way. For example, the metrics includes questions about caregiver strategy use, child engagement, communication skills, and social interactions, along with specific ways to measure each of those areas. Based on the evaluation design, we would expect to see improvements in communication, social interactions, and adaptive functioning. We would also expect to see increased caregiver involvement and more consistent use of intervention strategies in daily routines. Over time, this change should lead to a more independent functioning and improved developmental outcomes for children participating in the program. In terms of improving the program, there are a few areas that could be stronger. One improvement would be adding long-term follow-ups to see whether outcomes are maintained over time. Another would be like increasing caregiver training and support, especially for families with diverse backgrounds, to ensure like strategies are accessible and culturally responsive. Additionally, improving consistency in implementation across providers could help ensure that all participants receive the same quality of intervention. So, in conclusion, overall, I think the Early Start Denver model is a very strong and well-developed early intervention program. What stands out to me is how it balances the structure with flexibility and how it recognizes the importance of relationships in early development. I also think the focus on caregiver involvement is especially valuable because it extends the impact of the program beyond formal sessions. At the same time, this evaluation highlights how important it is to continuously assess and improve programs to ensure they are effective and equitable for all participants. In my opinion, evaluation is not just about measuring outcomes, but about understanding how programs can be better support children and families over time. So that is it. I hope you guys like it, and I'll see you next semester. Bye, guys.